Hello, and welcome to another episode of Automation Layering Masterclass, where we teach you how to get the most out of Optmyzr using a lot of automation techniques. And to do this, we always bring in the people who actually use Optmyzr and who work with clients to make them more successful. So today we have Matthieu from France, and he is managing a significant amount of spend, and he's able to do that much better and more efficiently using Optmyzr. But it's really not just Optmyzr. It's the fact that he was at Google for over a decade. He figured out exactly what strategies were working for clients. By the way, he's written a book about that, so check out his book. But even if you have all the best strategies in the world, sometimes you realize that you need a tool, you need a little bit of technology to help you actually execute on all of that. And that's where Optmyzr came in. So we're very fortunate today to have Matthieu joining us. So let's get started to learn about automation layering from Matthieu. All right, Matthieu, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Fred. Thank you very much for having me today.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Bonjour. Exactly.
No, go ahead. Where in France are you calling us from?
Well, actually, I used to live for almost 10 years in Paris, but I'm back now to where I was born in the south of France, in Toulouse, in the southwest of France, to be precise. And it's a great pleasure to be here with you today on the podcast. I'm a big fan, actually, of also everything that you have done, not only Optmyzr, but also your book, your past also at Google. I think we share the same background on this, because it's true that I've been spending 10 years of my life working at Google with the global clients, and especially handling the performance marketing topics for the global advertisers. And I had also the great pleasure to publish one book that is called the Google Ads Strategist Handbook. So please check it out. I will send you a copy, Fred, actually.
Thank you. No, I really look forward to it. And that's amazing. And so, thank you so much for really coming out here and sharing how you use Optmyzr, but also what you've learned in your 10 years at Google. Obviously working with so many clients and kind of like being on the inside, because you've been on the inside much more recently than I have, certainly gives you a fresh perspective. And I think people are going to learn a lot from our session today. So, but yeah, and then besides that, you also lecture in some top business schools in France.
Exactly.
You serve on the jury for SMX in Paris. So clearly very involved in the industry. And so then tell us a little bit about, after you left Google, you started consulting, right? How did that come about?
Yes, so that was actually a total adventure, because after 10 years at Google, I decided to leave Google, but not actually to launch my own business right away, or at least not on my own. I joined the board of a tech startup that is called Data Ads, and it still exists, right? And here we built a SaaS tool that can, dynamically change the landing pages for the e-commerce advertisers. So the goal here was to improve the profitability of their shopping investment, actually. But after 1 year, I had like a personal event. Actually, I had my third child to come, and so I decided to totally flip around my life. And so I left Paris. I left my job at this startup, and I decided to go with my very first passion, which was actually Google Ad and SEA. And so now, I deal with a lot of clients of all verticals, across all verticals. In total, I manage 25 million euros here. We are not talking in dollars here. We are talking in euros. So it's 25 million euros under management. And yeah, it's a client from across all verticals, being lead gen advertisers or e-commerce advertisers. But I have a great time working with them all.
Great. Well, let's jump right into it. So let's start with those e-commerce clients that you have, and a couple of the things you do for them. I think it all starts, obviously, with the structured data, the feed. So let's talk a little bit about what you do with that.
Yeah, exactly. So shopping for e-commerce is just super strategic. For most of my clients, it's 80% of where they are putting their money. And so making sure that you, nail down your shopping campaigns or your PMax campaigns is very, very important for those kind of advertisers. And guess what? Here, Optmyzr can just supercharge the kind of work that you are doing for your shopping advertisers. And that's exactly what I'm going to try to share with you in this first part. And everything starts, with a grit audit of their feeds, because come on, Fred, you know it. Every single time when we deal with shopping, it all starts with the feed. You cannot do any good shopping campaigns or PMax campaigns if you have like a crappy feed. And here, what I've loved with Optmyzr is basically this one-click merchant center feed audit that you can run is just super comprehensive and very, very interesting too. Because here you can even customize the type of attribute you want to scan for each advertiser. And so you can have, like just in the snap of a finger, a full comprehensive view of all the attributes that are missing, maybe the titles that are not optimized, the descriptions that you can improve and so on. And it can be super actionable and granular because, within the audit itself, you can, again, in one click, download the exact IDs that are concerned by the analysis. So it has totally, changed the way also I'm making a recommendation when it comes to feed optimization to my clients. And yeah, it's just an amazing tool. And go on, sorry.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think probably when you're auditing a new client, a new prospect, this is a great way for you to figure out how much improvement you will be able to do or how much the last agency has messed it up. And then, of course, the other thing is then you start making promises, right? You say, hey, we're going to make sure you're always like nice titles, the descriptions are in a certain way, that there's no disapproved products. But now you actually have that commitment and you have a lot of clients, so you have a lot of other stuff to do. So how do you stay on top of that? And that's where that audit then comes in because it runs consistently and it will point out things where you're maybe not living up to the promise that you made to the client, and you can fix it before the client calls you out or goes to another agency and asks them for an audit. So it helps both with client acquisition and client retention.
Yeah, true. And even, from an hygiene perspective, I used to run this particular merchant center feed audit at least once a month for all my clients. Because, like e-commerce advertisers, their products are coming, they come and go, and they are changing, their items very often. So it's pretty common also that advertisers do not keep always a very good feed, right, when they are changing their products. And so sometimes the description is missing, an attribute is missing, or maybe, they have changed the naming convention, things like this. And so here, the audits can help you spot those improvement areas in less than a minute, actually.
Yeah. And then one thing that Optmyzr does as well is we help with the creation of supplemental feeds, because one of the worst things then is you identify, okay, they don't have a great setup for this, like this title is broken. Now you go and fix it, but then the next time their automated tool regenerates the feed, it's probably going to be broken again. So it's like this constant battle. And it keeps breaking, right? But if you use a supplemental feed, then you're basically saying, like, listen, let them do whatever they do on their end. And then once the product feed comes to us for that product ID, we know it's broken, so we need to tweak it in this manner. And so it really makes it easier to work with your client without having to get start interrupting all of the other areas of their company that might be using that feed.
Definitely. And thanks, to this first job that you can do on the audit and then implementing it easily, as you said, with the supplemental feed feature, for instance, of Optmyzr. Think about your custom labels, all the attributes that are missing, like colors, materials, and things like this. I think you are ready to really build and maintain very powerful shopping campaigns for your clients. And what I've been also seeing is once the work is done, on the feed part, most of the clients are actually also looking for, something else than just your normal shopping campaign or PMax campaign that targets all the products and so on. And for instance, I have in mind this advertiser of mine who has, a huge catalog. It's around 18,000 different IDs, and they are changing, every day. So it's pretty massive. The challenge is here. Actually, is the visual just before.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. But this one also is massive. So yeah, I think about, like this specific advertiser with a massive catalog. And here, once we have, fixed the feed and then run some analysis that you can, pull directly from the Google Ads UI, we have seen that actually more than 60% of the client's budget was spent on products, but with a return on ad spend below 1. Okay, so basically 60% of your money is going into products that are making you lose even more money, right? So that was a real issue here. And so what I've decided to do, and again, thanks to Optmyzr, that's something that you can implement in less than 1 hour, was to restructure the entire shopping campaigns, but based on performance buckets. So basically, I've defined a matrix where you have on one hand the volume as measured by the cost that you put behind each product ID and the return on ad spend. And so we came up with 4 different categories: the stars products, the one that you can optimize, the one that makes you bleed money because they are not profitable, and then you have the zombie product, the one that you don't know because they are never shown. And that happens a lot, especially for e-commerce advertisers that have very large catalogs, right? And so by implementing this structure through Optmyzr, of course, we've managed to go from only 27% of the budget spent, on profitable products, on the very best product, the one that were the with the highest ROAS, to 53%. And already that was a massive win for this client because in just few weeks, as you can guess, just focusing the investment on product that really, drive a lot of margins, have been very, very, a game changer for the economics of this specific advertiser.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And obviously, the performance metrics keep changing. So something that used to be a zombie had no volume, it then starts getting some volume, and maybe goes into the optimized bucket, and maybe it doesn't work well. Something happens in the market, so it becomes a bleeder. So then you go and fix it, and then it becomes a star. And that's the beauty here, right? Is that you're not just moving things once, but it's constantly adapting to how things are performing. And that might be driven by external market conditions that are not in your control.
Exactly.
But at the very least, you're then able to move things into the right budget bucket so that, if something's going to be bleeding, you're not going to bleed out the whole budget for that campaign, and you're going to shift your budget to whatever the stars happen to be that month. So love that implementation there.
Yeah, exactly. And then, actually it was for the same client. The same client said, okay, after the win we had here on this specific account, he said, but guess what? I have a surprise for you, because actually I don't have only one account. I actually market my products across 7 different countries. And now I want you to implement more or less, like a new shopping strategy, but across all the countries. So here, that's a kind of nightmare that you can have as a PPC practitioner, because here you realize, you say, okay, 7 countries, 7 accounts, 7 different merchant center feeds that you all need to audit, etc. So now you know that it's easy to audit a feed thanks to Optmyzr, but you always, ask yourself, okay, how am I going to manage now, that many shopping campaigns? And so here I've decided to go with a slightly different approach, because the volume was not the same for all the markets. And so I've decided to basically stop PMax. I hope that there is no Googler that is listening to this call, because he wouldn't be very happy. But I decided to fully stop PMax everywhere across all the markets and go back to shopping campaigns. One of the insight was that the brand, especially people searching for the brand, here the CPCs with PMax were really, really high, okay, across all the markets. And so we decided to go for each market with a structure that consists in 3 different shopping standard campaigns. One for the brand only, okay, for the brand terms only. One that triggers only when the user search for the brand terms. A second one that only have the best sellers across, like the 18,000 products, only the best sellers for this specific country. And then a third one for the long tail of the catalog. But here, so Optmyzr helps greatly with the implementation of 20 plus campaigns, because with the shopping management feature of the tool, you can actually build them in 5 minutes, each of them.
Yeah, you basically just lay out the structure and then it implements it on the fly, right? Yeah.
Exactly. You just spend your time thinking and on the strategy, and then, with the tool, the execution becomes flawless and super productive. So that's really, like a key benefit here. But still, you have one problem, is how you steer those campaigns, right? Because here you can go and decide to have to manage, like individual bidding strategies for each of the countries, for each bucket, or each, even each campaign, etc. But come on, I've decided to not do this, because the way my customer was looking at those additional countries was purely to drive incremental conversions and incremental revenues. And basically, we don't care, if one conversion comes from Spain or from Germany. We just want to have more conversion for a given return on ad spend. And so here also, what I've decided to do is to build some portfolio bid strategies, but at the MCC level, actually. So here, every buckets of campaign. So for instance, if you take like the brand shopping campaigns, they're all managed by only one strategies. Some key benefits here. Number one, you get a lot of volume very rapidly. So in 2 weeks, that's it. Your smart bidding is already, like on top of things. It has already, a huge volume of data, and it can deliver the return on ad spend that you expect, from the smart bidding. The second advantage is that here, in terms of arbitrage, in terms of CPCs between the market, etc., super easy, because now you let the smart bidding at the top of your MCC managing, this complexity for you. So if you can find that there is this cheap conversion that you can get in Austria instead of spending your money in Spain, come on, do this, right? And the smart bidding can handle and make those arbitrage in real time for you. And, in less than 2 weeks, suddenly we have seen not only, conversion going up for these clients, but also, the return on ad spend is super well scaled, right? It's now when you turn the return on ad spend bid from up to 5%, boom, 24 hours later, the smart bidding is following you, etc. So it's super. It's a great, I think, strategy for an advertiser like this. Yeah.
And again, I think that's the beauty of the tool then, right? So if you said, listen, we have different goals for different campaigns or different goals in different markets, then you could actually set it to not be on a portfolio strategy, or you could have multiple portfolios. And it'd almost be just as easy with Optmyzr to maintain it. Because again, we handle that complexity of all the different campaigns. And I will talk about bid management efficiency a little bit later as well, but there's techniques that you can use there to automate that at scale very nicely. So yeah, I love that. And obviously it's great when the client comes to you and says, hey, Matthieu, we got a little bit more work for you. Going to make you busier because things are working, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
All right. And so then the next thing that you ended up doing had something to do with the brand and non-brand structures. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah, because one of the challenges that you have when you really want to split, brand and non-brand in shopping campaigns, it's how you maintain, like your keyword, your negative keywords. Because come on, like even if you put like different strategies, and of course for brand shopping campaigns, you are going to put like a higher return on ad spend. Maybe you are going to add also some CPC cap in your portfolio bid strategy to make sure that you don't pay much than X dollars or euros each click. But you will see that every single day, you will have thousands and thousands of non-brand search terms that will actually trigger your brand campaign. And you don't want that. You don't want this because, of course, what you want is to perfectly keep this campaign on the branded search term scope, so you can fine-tune the efficiency at the maximum and get the exact ROAS that you want with the exact CPC that is worth each click, right? And so here again, you can use Optmyzr, or at least I used Optmyzr to do the work for me because I'm a lazy guy. And so I've used, to be precise, the rule engine feature of the tool to set, an automation that says, okay, for this specific campaign, you please look every single day at all the search terms. And when you don't see the brand, please exclude it at the ad group level in exact match. And every single day, you have thousands and thousands of keywords that get excluded from your brand shopping campaign. What does that mean? It means that after 1 week or 2 weeks, or even sometimes after a month, depending on the power of the brand, here we go. You have like a perfect brand shopping campaign that only triggers for shopping search terms. So you can now decide to maybe show different products for this specific audience. You can also, you know exactly at which return on ad spend you can push this campaign to, and you know also exactly at which CPC you can bid, the most efficiently, by making sure that you don't lose that much impression share, but at the same time, you don't pay that click, I don't know, sometimes 80 cents or more than, $1 when it's a brand term, actually. So that was super helpful to combine actually the tools that Optmyzr offers on the shopping management campaign front with the rule engine also that can help you, stay on top of of the hygiene of what you build with the shopping management feature.
Exactly. And so there's another good reason to sometimes manage a shopping campaign, a standard traditional shopping campaign, as opposed to PMax, because standard shopping campaigns give you the ability to put in negative keywords and maintain that brand consistency. Now, you could kind of do this with Google. You could probably call your rep, if you have a rep, and tell them, hey, can you exclude these things? But if you came to them daily with hundreds of negative keywords, they'd probably not be super excited. So this is a great implementation. And again, it kind of like speaks to your strategy of thinking of like, why do we use PMax? Why do we standard shopping? Like, there are pros and cons to each.
Exactly. But the great thing is that, even for instance, when you think about the strategy that we have discussed earlier with the star product, the optimized product, the bleeder product, the zombie, and so on, with Optmyzr, you can actually build exactly the same strategy, but fully on PMax. It's also an option. In my case, I decided to go with standard shopping, but I've made exactly the same strategy for another advertiser where here everything was built on PMax. And so here you have all the benefits of PMax. You can then add, all the assets, images, videos, and so on. And that's pretty handy that Optmyzr actually can handle both types of campaign. It's not only something that you can do, only with standard shopping. You can also do it with PMax. So it gives you the room as the PPC strategist to really think about what is best for this client, and you don't have to care that much about the execution because the tool can handle it, right? That's the beauty of it.
And thank you to my team, because they work very hard to maintain that parity with Google. And basically the philosophy we have is we are not going to tell you how you should manage your campaigns. We're not going to come in and say like, hey, PMax, that's not a thing. Like, you shouldn't do it, because clearly it does work in certain instances and it's a big focus area for Google. So we're going to help you figure it out, and we're going to help you scale regardless of what campaign type you choose to use. Awesome. Let's talk about shifting gears here maybe a little bit, but DSA campaigns and how do you optimize those?
Ooh, DSA campaigns, Fred. DSA campaigns, I think is maybe the best product ever that Google has ever launched when it comes to advertising product. Of course, I love DSA campaigns. And there is this one strategy that I love doing for my e-commerce advertisers is to build very granular DSA campaigns. When I say granular DSA campaigns, is I approach it a little bit like a shopping standard campaign. What does that mean? It means that what I love to do is to build one ad group equal one product equal one dynamic target. And guess what? The dynamic target, of course, is the PDP, of the product detail page of the product itself. Okay. I love to do this because, as you can see on the visual, first, you can increase drastically the coverage of your dynamic search ad campaigns. You increase the coverage in terms of pages that are scanned, and that you can redirect traffic to, way better than you just keep the dynamic targets kind of all websites. It's way more granular, and you will get more pages scanned, but also in terms of inventory, because suddenly when you directly plug your DSA on the PDP pages, you see that you have new search terms that actually appear in your DSA campaigns, and that's great, right? The goal, of course, is not just to be more visible, is to drive, of course, incremental conversion and incremental value. And here, for instance, for this specific advertiser, again, who had a catalog of around like 5,000 products, SKUs, with these specific strategies, we have increased the traffic by plus 20%, translated into an increase of 52% in sales and 27% in conversion rates. And the secret sauce here is, how do you get like a better conversion rate? Well, because thanks to Optmyzr, again, I'm going to talk about it in a second, but you can even craft specific ads for each product using the attributes that you have in your feed. Okay. So basically you search for, like this specific Nike pair of shoes in blue from this specific model. In your ad directly, you can take the exact product name with the price, maybe the sales price, if it's on promotions, etc., if it's on sale. And so you have like a perfect alignment between the search term, the exact ad, and the landing page. And so, of course, when people are clicking on those ads, they are super ready to convert. And that's, again, this strategy is very easy to implement thanks to Optmyzr. And to be more precise, with the campaign automator feature that you have, because this feature helps you build DSA campaigns or other types of campaign based on any kind of feed. So you can take like contextual data feeds, but here you can also directly leverage within Optmyzr the Merchant Center feed of the account. And so by using the Merchant Center feed, boom, you can use directly all the attributes of your feed in your ads in, super easily. And that helps you, say, okay, so now I want my dynamic target to be the attribute link. I want my description one line to include the product name and the price, etc., etc., etc. And so you can build those very granular DSAs, again, in less than 1 hour, even for thousands and thousands of products, thanks to Optmyzr, actually.
That's fantastic. And so the beauty here is, I think the underlying strategy is not rocket science, right? Like we all, after 20 plus years of Google, we understand that relevance matters. But now you've actually freed up your time and you can say, oh, should we include the product price? Should we include some brand attributes? And you can actually very easily go in and modify the template. And next week, run a different template and see, oh, did that help me boost my conversion rates? But I think one of the super interesting things that you just pointed out too is, you would sort of think if you give Google your generic website and you're like, DSA at this, like figure out any page within this, you think you'd get as many impressions as listing every page independently. But it sounds like by listing them independently and sort of like focusing Google on those PDP pages, it actually drove quite a bit more volume. So I think that's a brilliant insight and something everybody should learn from.
Yeah, and especially, I think the relevancy is even better here because thanks to the ad, also that is super tailored for this PDP, it's, like, of course, when someone is searching for this product, you are the one, not, if not the most, but one of the most relevant options. Of course, between your ad, your landing page, and so on, it's just a perfect alignment. And in the past, I used to do this strategy, but it took me around, in average 1 day to implement the entire strategy for my clients. And now, thanks to the campaign automator, it takes me like 1 hour. So, again, it's day and night.
Gives you some time to go home and play with the 3 kids in the evening.
Exactly.
All right. So the next one we should talk about is, I believe, seasonality. So maillot de bain, swimsuits in French. What did you find out
Yes,
about
Matthieu
those?
Tran-Van swimsuit. Yeah, exactly. Because here it's still, again, this idea of leveraging different data feeds. So we've talked about how we can leverage the merchant center feed with DSA campaigns. And here it's more or less, like the same idea at the beginning, but in this case, with PMax and with contextual data. So the advertiser is in the swimwear industry. As you can guess, swimwear is highly seasonal, right? People are only buying swimwear between April to July, mid-July, and then it's the end of the season. So you cannot afford to lose some sales in this very high peak period. So the strategy that I decided to go with for this advertiser was, on top of the always-on search campaigns and shopping campaigns that you may have, I wanted to put a boost, with PMax. And the way I've played PMax, or I've used PMax here, is first, again, I looked at the geo data that we have in the account in order to map, the cities that were presenting both, the biggest volume of conversion, but also the best return on ad spend. And so here again, that's an analysis that you can find in Optmyzr actually. But here it helped me to scope, the top 10 cities where basically it was really interesting for them to do a massive push. And so here the problem is that people only buy swimwear when the weather is pretty good, because come on, in rainy April, no one is thinking about buying a swimsuit. But when it's shiny June or shiny May, everybody is thinking about, when they will be on the beach this summer, etc. So that's where, the magic happens, because I decided to combine the power of PMax across all Google networks with the weather contextual data that actually is already embedded into Optmyzr. You don't even have, to pull from an API your own weather data. You can, Optmyzr is already doing the job for you on this one. And so here the strategy was, every single time that in one of our top 10 cities, the temperature is above 27 degrees, then I want you to automatically activate a PMax campaign, or at least add the geo area, in the PMax campaign that I have, to advertise on a specific audience signal that was, basically the persona of the brand, where we leverage the customer list, the brand traffic, etc. So we knew that this specific audience signal was really, really super sharp for this brand. And here you can truly blast, from an advertising perspective across search, shopping, display, YouTube. And you can also think about a different creative strategy. For instance, we decided to go more with the new collection video on YouTube, insist on some lifestyle ads, on display, because we knew that people were looking at the advertising on a very sunny day when it was super warm, etc. So you can even play a little bit and do some testing with the creatives to see what performs best. But here, the idea again was to leverage this contextual data to activate, on top of all your always-on campaigns, a performance max campaign that can truly, meet the moment, I would say, when the user is in the exact precise moment of thinking about the swimsuit because it's super hot, super warm, and it's super sunny. So yeah, it was perfect. Yeah. And it was a great addition to
listen,
the strategy.
I love this because when we started talking about scripts more than a decade ago, bidding by weather was sort of the classic example, and people continue to talk about that. But oftentimes I'm at a conference and people are like, yeah, but what do you really do? And here's a brilliant example. Like, this is, again, not rocket science, but people are going to buy bathing suits depending on the weather. And we make that super easy to test out because it's a thesis, right? Like, you have to test out, does it actually make a difference? And like Matthieu is saying, some of these things to implement manually, I mean, you'd be spending your whole day, you'd be integrating with new APIs, like it'd be super complicated. But now you can actually put your marketing hat on and you can talk to your client and figure out what have they seen seasonality and temperature wise and weather wise. And if that seems to be something, very easy to set it up. And then you set that up and you got what Matthieu is talking about, thinking about audiences, thinking about shopping categories, thinking about all of the other things that are really Google ad specific. and all of this weather-based bidding and enabling of campaigns is handled for you automatically. So a huge time saver. I love that you're using this.
Definitely. No, it's a great addition in Optmyzr, to be honest. And the beauty of it is that, yeah, and the beauty of it also is that you can also add, if you have other contextual feeds. I'm thinking about, if you want also to implement some campaigns based on traffic, like the traffic updates, or even the financial markets updates. I have some clients in finance. We do want maybe to increase our ad pressure on some specific campaigns when some stocks, are going down or up, like the Nasdaq is going up. Boom, I want to trigger, or push or increase the bid on some specific campaigns or ad groups that I have. Here, you can actually do it with the campaign automator. You can bring your own contextual feed of data, and you can exactly replicate the same kind of approach.
Yeah, the campaign automator, rule engine, you can use all of those. And so that's where I would recommend, if you ever have a strategic idea and you are not quite sure how to implement it, there's so many ways you can go about it. Talk to your account manager at Optmyzr. Everybody gets an account manager, so they can certainly point you in the right direction and help you figure out how to connect that. So in the case of weather, we have that data, it's integrated. But in the case of what you're saying, could be traffic data. Maybe we don't have that yet. So we'll just talk to you, figure out where to bring it in from, and how to connect it to all of those location-specific elements. Well, good. So, hey, let's talk about the next one, which is smart bidding. Okay, so obviously one of the biggest automations that most advertisers do is automating their bidding. But then there's this misconception, I think, that, hey, you've turned on automated bidding from Google. Like, my job is done. I'm not going to think about bidding anymore. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. The evil laugh, or is that like, oh my God, you're so dumb for just stopping there, right? But that's the opportunity. That was my second book, Unlevel the Playing Field. If you thought you were done bidding, hey, here's your edge. So Matthieu, share the
Exactly. I think actually bidding became even more complex since smart bidding exists. Come on, Fred. It was even easier sometimes just to put like a given CPCs according to your revenue per click, and come on, that was it, right? Now it's a complex machinery. And here, one of the most powerful things that you can do when it comes to your bidding is to train them and make them, like smoothly adapt themselves to your very own constraint. Okay. So of course, if your client wants a return on ad spend of 500, let's say, you can try. If you launch your campaign and you just put 500, come on, guess what? I think it's not going to work, or at least even especially for the beginning. So here, the idea is when you want to drive more performance with smart bidding, you need to train and help little by little the smart bidding to go where you want it to go. Okay, and so here it's a job that you need to do on a regular basis, and everything that needs to be made on a regular basis, guess what? Optmyzr can really help you with that. How? If you take, for instance, the rule engine. Here, almost for all my clients, but for this one specific example, what I've been doing, I created a rule on portfolio bid strategies, because I'm a big fan of portfolio bid strategies, because you can cap CPCs and so on. And what I wanted to achieve was to increase the return on ad spend to a certain level, but by doing it just by little touch. So basically, every single time that the smart bidding has achieved your desired return on ad spend, then you increase the return on ad spend by 1%. Okay, and when it does not meet the constraint, then you just decrease the CPC by 1 cent. Okay, so it's very, very granular fine tuning. And by doing it on a regular basis, on autopilot, of course, because Optmyzr and Rule Engine do it for you, you can achieve like pretty good result. And that's, for instance, what you see, we see now on the visual, where basically not only you see that the smart bidding is taking, like the lift, and it follows very, very well your constraints, because you don't put just, from 0 to 500, you just increase things by 1% every single time, every week or every day. And also it's going to exceed the expectation. Here in this case, for instance, for this specific advertiser, for instance, my goal was to have a 500% ROAS. And just, I started, around 350 and went little by little, increasing the return on spend thanks to the rule engine. And guess what? The system has actually, went beyond our expectation, and we delivered, more than 600% ROAS for this specific client. And still, what is interesting and what you don't see in the visual is that the volume or the conversion value has not fallen down, actually. Like the conversion value kept going up and up and up and up. So just by teaching, and little by little, how you want the smart bidding to behave, not only you can achieve your profitability constraint, but also you can deliver the volume of conversion that your advertiser is expecting.
And again, I think that's the beauty. What you just said is volume would be a big concern, but you just bake that into the rule engine strategy, right? So I'm going to put it up on screen here again, but where you're saying basically look at the ROAS hitting a certain target. You can have multiple conditions on that. So you could also say if my ROAS is being met and my volume is still above a certain threshold that I want, or it's not decreasing by too much, then keep pushing that ROAS goal a couple percent more aggressively. And I think the other beautiful thing that you're doing here is, if you didn't have a ton of time, you'd probably make bigger pushes, right? You'd make 10%, 15% pushes, and that might cause more drastic changes, and it might, modulate a little bit more wildly, and you might more quickly think, hey, it's not actually working and it's not doing what it should do. But by automating it and saying, listen, every week we're just going to make a little push and we're going to see if it's still working, you don't have to worry about it, right? And it's a more precise, more granular method of getting where you need to be.
Yes, and it can actually, the system has the patience that maybe you don't have as a PPC practitioner, just as you highlighted, right? But here the system has
memory, like, hey, got to do it again, right? Like you're going to forget.
Yeah, exactly. Here you put it on autopilot, and guess what? It works, right? It's just only a matter of being patient. And at the beginning, setting the right constraint and the right variation that you want. But come on, it definitely works. It's such a powerful strategy. And that also free me up. Like, I don't know, at least I'm saving one day of work, because when you have to do this exact strategy across, like 25, 26 different accounts, etc., it's painful, right? Now with Optmyzr, you can actually automate everything, and you can truly scale, like very granular optimization. And that's also, like what is really amazing with Optmyzr is that it's not only one rule that says, I'm going to increase ROAS when it meets ROAS. No, you can actually precisely define what are the thresholds on your end. You can precisely define the variation. Actually, it's because it's a tool that has been thought by PPC professionals for PPC professionals. So you can really put your very own and custom strategy and automate it and scale it. So sometimes, for this client, I put like 3%, but for another client, I will put 5%, etc., etc. So it depends really on each of the client, but the mechanic of the strategy remains the same.
Yeah, exactly. Some clients are more aggressive. They want to get there faster. So, you push some of the limits a bit faster with them.
Exactly.
But it's customization and personalization is the key here. Awesome. So bid management, check. Let's talk about keywords. Is that still a thing these days?
Yeah, come on. Keywords is still a huge thing. And I love keywords, right? And I love keywords. I do actually a lot of keyword management also. And again, thanks to Optmyzr, I've been able to reach even a new level, okay? One of the very basic strategy that we all know as PPC practitioners is, of course, to add the keyword expansion thing, okay? So it consists in adding new keywords, very often from your search term reports, that have been profitable or that have a reasonable or better CPA, okay? That's something that you do, on a regular basis as a PPC practitioner. So you need to open your search term reports, download maybe, the search term, you need to rank them and decide if yes or no it makes sense to add them. Here, with Optmyzr, what I've been doing, again, because I'm a lazy guy, I've decided to build a rule that automatically add, in exact match, the search terms that are actually profitable, and we know this for a fact, and that also have proven their profitability after a certain threshold in terms of clicks, for instance. So here, what you see on the visual, I said, every time that a search term has, more than 99 clicks, so it gets to 100, and it's profitable, then please add it to the ad group in exact match, okay? And you can also do the same, but for exclusion, right? So when you know that the return on ad spend is not profitable after 100 click, please add it in negative, and so on and so on. So I used this strategy. You can also, exactly use the same automation, for instance, for your DSA campaigns. When a search term is not profitable, please exclude it automatically from my DSA campaign. You just build, a shared negative keyword list at the account level, and you put all the non-profitable keywords in this list, and the job is done on autopilot. And the result, I did this. I pushed this very far for one client. And the strategy ended up to add in total almost 500 new keywords, okay, based on the performance, okay? So of course you spend more money because you increase and you expand your keyword coverage with more keywords and the inventory expands. But come on, because you only pick the best search terms, the ones that are super highly profitable, and they are profitable because they have had more than 100 clicks. So for sure, it's proven performance, right? Even if your spend goes up, for instance, for this client, the CPA went down, the conversion started to really be super scaled. We have multiplied by 3 the volume of conversions. And not only the return on investment was better, but also the volume of profits for this client, as you can see in this visual, is the chart that is on the top right corner. It's a hockey stick, kind of curve
Can we
that you
hire
see.
you with that kind of a chart? I think anyone who's not hiring you is crazy.
But come on, and every single time I run this strategy, I always have this kind of hockey stick growth. And why? Because you are sure that all the search terms that are super profitable are automatically added to your account. And so, of course, boom, 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 you start to stack, all the incremental conversion that you can get from those search terms. And at some points, 3 months after, 6 months after, 1 year after, the client business has totally changed, to be honest. I have even some clients that told me, can you please, stop now because my team is kind of full. We cannot, ship more orders actually. So we want you to go more smoothly now. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. I love those stories. I remember in my early days at Google, we had some clients. I was working with all the Dutch speakers. And I'd get those same calls. I was like, hey, you guys are driving. It was a company that was building like personal computers. And they called up and they were like, I don't have enough people. I don't have enough components. Like, I can't keep up with the sales you're generating. Take a break. And, that's sort of the best story you can hope for, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of an achievement. I think, for every PPC practitioner, when your advertiser and your clients tells you this, it's kind of, okay, you have won the award, right? You have won the competition. You cannot do better.
Amazing. Now, what about keywords or search terms in the context of PMAX in a place where we have a little bit less control? Is that still something you can work on?
Yes, of course. And thanks to a recent update, on the Google side that now gives you the ability to actually download all the search terms, like that you can find under the Insight tab. And to be honest, it's pretty cool because, like you have all those category searches and then you have all the details for the search terms, and you have actually the performance that goes with it in terms of click, conversion value, and so on. But come on, let's face it, especially when you are a PPC practitioner that manage, like millions of dollars, it's pretty painful to go into every single account, go into the Insight tab and download the data every single time, etc. So guess what? Optmyzr can do it for you, right? How? Through a script. So within Optmyzr, you already have a script that you can download and implement as any script. Basically, it's the script that we all know, and you can implement it within your account at the account level or at the MCC level, and automatically you can schedule it so it will pull in a Google spreadsheet for you all the search terms that PMax actually is giving you or has delivered on, and that's also a game changer because you can do a lot of things, but I love to do two things with this data. Number one is, exclude more keywords from my shared negative list. If, as you have said earlier, Fred, you have asked your Google rep to implement some negative keyword list on your PMax campaign, so you can keep on, enriching this negative keyword list when you see that some are not super relevant or not very or with very low performances, etc. And the second thing that you can do also is feed and increase, like the keyword coverage of your normal search campaigns, actually. When PMax has spotted, a little bit like DSA, but when PMax spots, a search term that performs very well in terms of volume or in terms of return on ad spend, then why don't you, just add it to your normal search campaigns? And now, I can leverage not only all my search terms that are coming from my search campaign, but I can also see all the terms coming from PMax that often offers, new kind of territories, because it's true that PMax goes very far sometimes and reaches some audiences that you may not have thought about at the beginning. But come on, it works, right? This kind of intent that was not under your radar, and suddenly people are converting out of this intent. Okay, so now I can build, a total new ad group on this new intent, or maybe, a campaign on this. And so you have some synergies that you can play, but all of those things are possible because at the beginning, you don't have to do nothing. And on Monday morning, you have all your reports and all the Google spreadsheet fueled, with all the PMax search terms in one place. And that's, like magic, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's going to give you an edge is not just sitting and waiting for the automation to handle everything for you, but see the automation as something that tests new areas. And once it finds something interesting, go back and actually think about a strategy. Should that have had different messaging? Should that have had a different budget associated? Was there a seasonality to that new thing it found, right? So there's so many questions you can ask to take that new finding to that next level. And speaking of new messaging, so messaging these days is largely done through RSAs, responsive search ads. What do you do with responsive search ads to facilitate that?
Yeah, exactly. So responsive search ad is always a challenge. It has been always a challenge for different topics. I think about testing, for instance. We never know, should I pin my headlines or not? Does the ad strength score of Google worth something? Yes, no, we don't know, etc. So basically what I've been doing is that I've developed my own checklist to know if yes or no I should improve or optimize responsive search ads. I basically look, yes, at the volume of impressions. I look also at the click-through rate. The ad strength is one also of the component that I'm looking at. But also that you need to change your ads when you have more difficult problems, like a disapproved ad or an ad that is limited, because you have kept this one exclamation mark in one headline that limits everything. Or also when the conversion rate is lower than for the rest of your campaign or your ad group. And here, to be even more precise, usually I don't look at the conversion rate of my ads. I look at the specific ratio of conversion divided by impression. Okay, what I really want to know is, from the impression, does this ad actually helps you to convert more? And you can actually, the way I was doing this is that I built, specific filters within the Google Ads UI to just filter out all the RSAs that I had to improve and rework on. Okay. But again, Now, thanks to Optmyzr, I've actually built a rule in the rule engine that combined all my criteria, okay, and that can push me, one report with all my ads, all the ads that I need to improve. And so now I don't spend that much time, just in the account, going to the right tab, expecting or waiting for the UI to load, right? I think that I've lost one life just waiting for Google Ads to load, right? And then add your filters and then, change the account in the MCC, redo the same process. Now, all those ads that you need to, rework are pushed to you directly in your inbox. And that truly changed my productivity because now I don't spend that much time, like searching or looking for the ad that I need to improve. I can focus like 99% of my time just improving the ad for real, right? I don't spend that much time finding which ad I'm going to change. No, they come to me, I improve the ads, and then I can, directly focus 100% of my work on improving my client's performance.
That's great. And so one thing that I like here that you're doing, you're taking advantage of the fact that the rule engine can do relative comparisons. So that last line you see there, the conversions per impression of the ad is less than the conversions per impression average for the ad group. That's beautiful, right? So it's one of the ways that we find, for example, expensive keywords or expensive things. It's like a brand keyword is always less expensive than the average of the account. But if you look within the brand campaign, you can look for it to be relative expensive compared to other brand keywords. And so that's kind of one of these things, again, where you unlevel the playing field. And sure, you could use the Google interface to find some simple things, but by combining like the level that you look at, or maybe looking across different date ranges and like, is this ad progressively getting slowly worse? Like it's not noticeable from one week to the next, but if you look at over a time range of 7 weeks and every week it's dropping a little bit, okay, maybe now you need to go and do something with it, right? So it's again, that flexibility and being able to look at a more strategic level that really helps you do what you're doing for clients, which is drive great results. And then once you have those great results, you got to do reporting, right? That can be time consuming.
Yes, of course. That's very time consuming. Reporting is a nightmare. Okay, reporting is a nightmare. Plus, I to be honest with you, I also challenge a lot the usefulness of reporting because the question every single time I ask my client is, okay, if I send you a report, what kind of decision are you going to make? And 90% of the case, they don't know. But still, you need to give some numbers just for the CMO to look good also. And in the past, it could have been a task that takes you like ages. And, like it's not just pulling all the data from...
It's boring.
Pulling all the data, putting it into a slides, making it looking nice, et cetera. So you spend a lot of time actually not driving value for your clients, but building slides. And here also, one thing that I love with Optmyzr is that you can have very high quality reporting and very flexible high quality reporting. That's the important word. The word is flexible because you can find some reporting solution that will say you, okay, here we go. That's a report. Okay. But you don't want this because you want to customize it for each client. Maybe one client is going to be more focused on, the search term. Another one will be on the performance of their ads. And you want to be able, to change all those elements. And with Optmyzr, you can build automatically a reporting that will be sent every week, every month, every quarter, whatever the cadence that you want, right? But which is going to precisely show what you want to show. So you have different widgets that you can combine, but you can also customize the widgets, the columns that the tables are going to show, etc. And then, it automatically generates for you the reporting and send it to your client. You don't even have to download it and send it. No,
the best one is like there's even a thingy that says if my conversions are below a certain threshold, then don't automatically send it to my client. Like send it to me, let me know something's up. But if it's
exactly,
send it on. Like be on your merry way.
Yeah, and I love this feature actually because sometimes you have like a tracking problem and you don't realize it for this week, and oh come on, and then you send a report that says, yeah, this week you have had like one conversion, and the
Oh my God.
client calls you, what's happening? So here, yeah, that's a great feature. This one, it's kind of a safety net, right? But even with this, what I truly want to underline is, yeah, this ability to customize very deeply actually the reporting that you are sending to a client. Even you can pick the personalized the custom columns that you have built in the account, and bring and report them back on your automatic reporting. That's super powerful. It's not something that just tells you like conversions, right? Think about the lead gen advertisers where they do have like CRM conversion, where you can see, of course, the form, but then after that, the qualified lead, the proposal, the customers. Here, you can report on all those columns that you have in the UI. You can add them to your reporting, and not all the reporting solutions are actually proposing this kind of feature.
And one of the latest things, I don't know if you're using this, but we have the CRM integration directly into HubSpot. And so you can bring that in, that can become part of your bidding strategies. And again, it's about like in all of these automations, telling the automation what it is you're working towards. And we always talk about conversions, right? But like, what is the conversion? Is it the sale, or is it the lead, or is it some stage in between? And that's where it then becomes a question of, do we have enough data at the level that we want to make meaningful decisions on a frequent enough basis? And if we don't, like, let's find something earlier in the funnel and let's be directional as opposed to like super precise. But again, and that's the thing, right? That's why we have people like Matthieu and agencies, and we need to think about these things, because if it was as simple as writing a blank check to Google and like, hey, get me more sales, that'd be kind of nice, but that's not the way it works. So yeah, Matthieu, this has been absolutely fantastic. Honestly, I think you've shared more insights and tricks than anyone we've had. So thank you so much
Cool.
for doing that. Now, if people want some help with this, because at the end of the day, you do have to know how to use Optmyzr. You do have to have a smart strategist in place. How do people find you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. If they speak French, I also have my very own website, which is my name .fr at the end. And still, also, you can find me on Amazon.
Yeah. It's the whole name or just the last name?
Yeah, it's Matthieu-Tran-Van, the whole name, .fr. That's my website. But here, I insist you need to speak French because I've not translated it. My LinkedIn profile is in English and in French, but my website is only in French. Come on. I was busy, optimizing my client's account. And otherwise, you can find me also on Amazon with my book, the Google Ads Strategist Handbook, that you can find directly on Amazon.
Great. Yeah, and it sounds like you take clients who speak English. You don't have to speak French.
No, yeah, and I do. Exactly. I do have like several clients in the US and even in other countries. So yes, if you can bear the French accent, then please reach out. I will be pleased to talk about your account.
Well, a big thank you to you, Matthieu, for sharing everything you did today. And thanks everyone for watching. So we do this occasionally, Automation Layering Masterclass, the greatest tips and tricks for using Optmyzr and automation in general to run your PPC accounts better. Matthieu Tran-Van is one of the best clearly in the business. Read his book, check out his website, and give him a shout out or connect with him, figure out how to work with him. So thanks for watching. We'll see you for the next one.
Thank you very much, Fred. Thank you for having me.